This presentation will provide an overview of both cognitive and emotional characteristics that are common among high ability learners. When you think of giftedness or high ability, we often think about cognitive factors. For example, a child who has a great memory, who has well developed verbal skills, or who is adept at manipulating numbers. But when we think of it in that way, we almost separate high ability from the rest of the person. Instead, many would argue that high ability permeates all aspects of a child's being. It's not simply related to cognitive functions, but also how the child perceives and reacts to everything in the world. This definition by Anne-Marie Roper captures this holistic understanding. She wrote, "Giftedness is a greater awareness, a greater sensitivity, and a greater ability to understand and transform perceptions into intellectual and emotional experiences." This definition accounts for the cognitive descriptors we commonly associate with giftedness or high ability, but it also allows for the notion that high ability extends well beyond to include everything about how a child interacts with the world. Before we discuss the characteristics, a few caveats are needed. High ability students are not all alike. They can be extremely different in terms of their personalities, interests, and specific abilities. Therefore, not all of them will have all of the characteristics that we discuss. Also, not everyone who has these characteristics will be high ability. The point is, when you look at the population of high ability students as a whole, certain characteristics are present more often. To begin developing our understanding of high ability students, we can become familiar with these common characteristics. It's also important to realize that the characteristics are not always positive. Depending on the context and whether or not it is a match for the student's needs, some of the characteristics may manifest in negative ways. We will explore both the positive and negative manifestations of these characteristics. One of the most exciting characteristics we notice about high ability students is they learn information at a rapid pace. It usually takes them 1 or 2 repetitions to learn a new concept, compared with 7 or 8 repetitions for the general population. As a result, you can move through content more quickly and have time to delve into subject areas at a deeper level. The disadvantage, however, is that when the pace is not differentiated for these students, they are frequently bored in school, and that may translate to behavioral problems. One of the first characteristics we may notice about high ability children is their vocabulary. Often parents will report young gifted children spouting off high level words they may not even be able to pronounce, yet they can use it correctly in a sentence. Gifted students with such advanced vocabulary, though, become expert litigators at a young age. It is easy to fall in the trap of debating and arguing everything with a child such as this. Gifted students or high ability students also have in-depth knowledge about a lot of topics, especially passion areas. Sea creatures, astronomy, the Civil War, whatever the topic, if they are interested in it, they will immerse themselves in it. Although we want to encourage such intellectual interest, this characteristic may have negative implications when the high ability student often appears as a know-it-all to others, is impatient with their peers, and does not listen to others' contributions. High ability students may be able to grasp higher math concepts intuitively. They understand bigger concepts in the bigger picture and can make connections across disciplines. However, this may be challenging for them when teachers require them to show their work. They may have trouble doing step-by-step problems and make careless mistakes. High ability students also may be highly creative. This characteristic allows them to see problems in new ways and generate original solutions to problems. Creative thinkers, however, also have some characteristics that are less desirable to teachers and parents. They may be argumentative, nonconforming, and push the boundaries of all rules and guidelines. Because of their ability to process information so quickly and to make connections, high ability students have quite the sense of humor. When they're grouped together, the puns are flying and the banter back and forth sometimes is hilarious. In the classroom, however, this trait may not be so delightful, as these students may make jokes that are at the expense of other students, or distract the class from their focus on the learning. High ability students may have a circle of friends that extends well beyond their age mates. They may have friends who are younger than they are because they can have more control of the play. Or on the other hand, they may seek out friendships with older students who are more on their same intellectual level. Or they may select friends primarily on the basis of shared interests, because many may not have much in common with their same age peers. They can feel lonely and isolated at times. High ability students are also very curious and observant. They want to know everything and have an endless supply of questions. Many parents report that high ability children have an interest in philosophical questions at a very young age. Such curiosity, however, may be exhausting for parents or teachers of the high ability. Likewise, being so observant may present a challenge for the student to pay attention in school instead of being distracted by his or her surroundings. High ability students may exhibit characteristics of perfectionism. If the curriculum is not challenging enough, they may learned early on to expect all A's with minimal or no effort. With a record of success and minimal experience with not doing well, a fear of failure may develop, and the need to do things perfectly may intensify. We all want students to try their best, but when their best is not good enough and the student is driven by a need to be perfect, this characteristic can be detrimental. Another common characteristic of gifted individuals is the tendency for asynchrony in their areas of development, physically, socially, cognitively, and emotionally. They are frequently labeled as gifted on the basis of their cognitive asynchrony. They are well advanced cognitively compared with what is typical for children their age. However, the other areas of development may not be equally advanced, causing difficulty for the child. For example, think about a kindergartner who may be able to multiply double digit numbers yet, but they cry due to separation anxiety from their mother at the drop off. The difficulty emerges when we come to expect them to function at a high level all of the time in every area just because they are capable of performing at that level cognitively. We may tend to forget that they are still just children and hold them to unrealistic standards for behavior and emotional maturity. So go ahead and respond in the chat. What characteristics have you noticed most frequently in the high ability students with whom you worked with in the past? Dabowski, a Polish psychiatrist who also wrote about the intensity of gifted individuals, he believed that all people had certain levels of developmental potential that allowed them to achieve. He identified 5 areas of intensities or overexcitabilities that fuel his developmental potential. He observed that these intensities were found in higher levels of gifted students, and he thought that they fueled developmental potential. This theory has received considerable attention in the field of high ability education because of its explanatory power in understanding the reactions of high ability individuals. Let's walk through some of these intensities and give examples to illustrate them. The intellectual intensity is perhaps the most obvious one we would associate with high ability. It refers to an individual's desire to know and to understand. This manifests in the passion areas we talked about earlier, the intense curiosity and enthusiasm about learning. It is important to know that intellectual overexcitability is not the same concept as high achievement. Some students may be very high in intellectual overexcitability and be low achievers. They may love to learn and hate to go to school for other reasons such as boredom or mismatch between learning style and instruction. Sensual intensity can be present in one or more of the senses. The greater sensitivity to visual images and input can make for an appreciation of the subtleties of light and color and the detail that would make for a gifted artist. But one cannot decide to experience that only in its positive form. Children with sensual intensity may also be sensitive to the amount and type of light in a classroom. They might be overwhelmed by the visual input in certain environments. They might be sensitive to the temperature or fluctuations. Touch can be sensitive too. The child could be comforted by touch. Think about blankets or hair twirling or cat petting, and irritated by fabrics that are not smooth or soft. Sensitivity of the skin and body in general can make one unable to tolerate contact with certain allergens. This begins with sensitive skin and the colic of a baby who is later identified as a high ability student. The sense of smell can be great in instances of appreciation, or can cause someone to not be able to stand being near the odor, barely able to control the gag reflex. The ability to be aware of all these tastes in a dish can make a great cook and can make for highly selective eaters among children and even adults. The composer must hear all the lines of the score simultaneously and was likely sensitive to loud noises of the classroom. Psychomotor is a need for movement. It is the heightened sensory experience of the neuromuscular system. High ability students may have trouble sitting still. They may need to move around a lot. They may have rapid and loud speech patterns. They also might need less sleep and have difficulty relaxing. This characteristic might be misinterpreted as ADHD. The difference is that the high ability child can concentrate and pay attention, but the need for movement is still present. Emotional intensity is found in the individual with intense interpersonal relationships. If reciprocated, this can be wonderful, but intensity can be frightening to those who do not share it or understand it. The intense individual may be viewed as suffocating the friend or being possessive or controlling. Gifted students may have a greater awareness of feelings of the self and the capacity for understanding the feelings of others. Empathy. This can cause one to be a great friend, but it can also cause despair for victims of social justice. It often is said that the highs are higher and the lows are lower, but it is the rate at which high ability children experience these that can be disarming. High ability students can experience a range of emotions almost simultaneously, or can churn from one to the other easily. This makes the emotional experience very rich, but also overwhelming for a child or adolescent. Think about a child without the language of emotion or understanding of emotion, but the experience of having these feelings. Yes, their own feelings can be easily hurt, but they also have the ability to identify the vulnerabilities of others and deliver stinging criticism that is right on the mark. It is difficult to study this consistently at the ages we might find it interesting as emotion is learned. Younger students may have emotional experience, but not the ability to express it in words or appropriate actions. The child may be discouraged from expressing this emotional intensity or not have a model for expressing and then suppress this intensity, feeling that these emotions are not normal and unacceptable. What messages do these children receive about how they experience the world? High ability students may have imaginational overexcitability. They may have vivid and intense dreams. They may daydream often and get wrapped up in imaginary worlds in their play. They may write or tell interesting, detailed stories with elaborate plot lines. It is often very common for high ability students to have imaginary playmates. For young students, this intensity may make it difficult for them to separate the real from the imaginary, and therefore, some books and films may be perceived as too scary or intense, even if they are marketed towards children. So, in the chat, how do others, same age peers, or adults in their lives tend to respond to high ability children as a result of some of the characteristics they exhibit? As you've listened to this presentation and heard about the characteristics, it may seem like a daunting task to parent or teach a gifted child. There are a few statements we need to keep in mind, though, to make this road smoother. We need to remember foremost that they are children first and high ability second. We need to keep in mind that even though they can reason better than some of the adults we may know, they still need guidance, nurturance, and protection. We need to adjust our expectations for their behavior and our reactions to situations according to their level of development in each different area, and not just focused on their advanced cognitive capabilities. We need to appreciate their interests. When they are so intensely focused on passion areas, we need to communicate our value of those areas and not be dismissive of them or try to gear them towards something that is more age or gender appropriate. Validating their sensitivities will go a long way to reassuring them that how they are wired is acceptable. Society does not value different, and when someone is as intense as a high ability student may be, such extreme reactions may be mocked or labeled as being overdramatic or too sensitive. When we do that, we are teaching high ability children to think something is wrong with them and their reactions. Instead, we can validate the reactions and help them problem solve and learn strategies for coping with such intensities. We need to make sure we are providing them opportunities for challenge so they can learn the importance of working hard and developing study skills. We do not want them to internalize the message that school is easy and therefore never learn how to work hard and prepare. Finally, we need to provide them opportunities to be with other high ability students. Research findings show us in all ways, socially, emotionally, and cognitively, high ability students benefit from the opportunity to be around others who are like them, who understand their intensity, who share their enthusiasm for learning, who can reason on the same levels, and who can appreciate them for who they are. Collectively, an awareness of these strategies and attention to the social and emotional needs of these children will enable us to better parent and teach them, allowing them to reach their highest levels of developmental potential. If you think you might have a student who is high ability in your classroom who has not been formally identified through the COGAT or through NWEA, please reach out to your building high ability coordinator with their name as a possible referral. Our coordinators and Guiding Coalition are working on a process to ensure that we are identifying the correct students who need high ability services.